Good morning. I'm Command Sergeant Major Dan Elder from AUSA's Institute of Land Warfare. Thank you, welcome, and thanks for joining us for this contemporary military forum titled Man, Train, Equip the Force of the Future. As your professional association, the Association of the United States Army and the Institute for Land Warfare are proud to provide forums like this one throughout the year that broaden the knowledge of Army professionals and those who support the Army. These professional development seminars are AUSA's way of amplifying the U.S. Army's narrative to audiences inside the Army and help to further the Association's mission to be the voice for the Army and support for the soldier. Of course, we cannot do this alone. AUSA relies on members to help tell the Army story and to support the soldiers and their families. A strong membership base is vitally important for our advocacy efforts in Congress, the Pentagon, and the Defense Industrial Base, and to the public in communities across the country through AUSA's 121 local chapters. For those of you, Army professionals, who are not yet members of your professional association, we encourage you to join with a special introductory offer. At your seats, you'll see some of these membership applications. Feel free to fill one out. Bring it by the AUSA membership booth 307 in Exhibit Hall A or online at ausa.org/membership. If you're already a member of AUSA, thank you for staying with us, and please give your invitation to a fellow professional. You'll be doing a great service to the association and to the United States Army. Just some quick ROE on questions this morning. We do have some microphone stands set up. I know some of you have great booming voices, and you probably feel you don't need the aid of a microphone, but this is being recorded, so to help those who are following along or watching the video, it'll be helpful if you use the microphones. Also, we have question cards at each seat, or many of the seats. Feel free to write a question. Please direct it to a panel member if appropriate. We will be collecting those written questions up throughout the presentations and distribute them to the panel members. Today, we are honored to have a panel of subject matter experts on manning, training, and equipping the force. To lead this panel of experts is our Chief Enlisted Expert, and I turn it over to our panel chair, Sergeant Major of the Army, Daniel A. Dailey.
Well, thanks, Dan. And I just want to say what a great job AUSA has been doing so far for this year's annual conference. I think everyone would agree this has been a spectacular week so far. Lots of events and a great amount of information sharing across the entire spectrum of readiness, the Chief of Staff of the Army's #1 priority. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Our main mission as non-commissioned officers is care for our soldiers and preparing them for war. So in support of the Chief's overall readiness, #1 priority, and the theme for this year's AUSA Contemporary Military Forums, this forum we want to talk about how we're going to man, train, and equip the force of the future, and some of the challenges that the panel members will pose to you, and some recommendations on where that may go for the future as well. I'll keep my remarks brief this morning to facilitate the maximum amount of time from our subject matter experts. And I'll let them each introduce themselves as they begin to speak, but we've gathered a panel of experts from across the force to lay out their individual perspectives of each one of the areas that they focus on. So look forward to your participation and questions. Please write down your questions or grab the mic at the end of each one of the panels as they get done with their segments or at the end. And please participate because we value your questions and, more importantly, we value your feedback. Okay, so we'll begin with Sergeant Major Anthony C. Bowers, U.S. Army Recruiting Command, where it all begins in our assessance mission and how we will assess the soldiers of the future.
Thank you, Sergeant Major. Good morning. All right. Slide, please. Right. Before I touch on the slide, like I said, I want to introduce myself. I am Sergeant Major Anthony Bowers. I am the G3 Sergeant Major for Recruiting Command. About a month and a half ago, I came out of position as the brigade CSM for the 3rd Recruiting Brigade. We have 5 non-prior service recruiting brigades within Recruiting Command, and we have a medical brigade. And I just want to, before I touch on the slide itself, I just want to give a little backdrop in regards to recruiting in and of itself for those who have not been a part of it. So within the brigade that my former commander and I were in, we had 8 battalions, and we covered 18 states. So within those 18 states, we had 54 companies, we had 274 recruiting centers. Some of those recruiting centers had as many as, let's say, 10 or 11 soldiers within that recruiting center, being run by normally a sergeant first class or a very high-speed staff sergeant, to as small as a 2-person center, you know, in the middle of nowhere, probably covering about, 40,000 square miles when you look at it. So those individuals are out there, those high-speed non-commissioned officers are out there every day beating the streets, finding young men and women to join the Army. Now, some of the challenges, so I have the slide up there, and I'm not going to try to insult anyone's intelligence with it, but I'm just going to touch on a couple of the challenges we have in regards to it. And if you look at the slide, in 1995, 40% of the youth between 16 and 24, they had a family member who had served within the Army. In 2014, it was down to 16%. You can see how the decline had gone. We say the military service is a family business. And you can look at certain places. If we look at, let's say, a Fort Campbell, Fort Hood, places like that that have a recruiting center near there are numerous individuals who have someone, either a parent, a relative, a brother, some relative who had served within the Army. 79%, and like I said, I'm not trying to insult anyone's intelligence by reading off the slide, but 79% of the new recruits, they have a relative who had served within the Army. 28% of them had parents who had served within the Army. In the next 30 years, they're saying American veterans' population will decline over 35%. Now, when we get these studies, we get studies from places like Jammers, and they provide us feedback on today's youth. And they looked at individuals between 17 and 35, and 49% of them were not able to be able to name all 4 of the DoD active duty services. It reminds me like of Jay Leno, when Jay Leno walks around and asks individuals, hey, name these 4 services. Same sort of scenario in regards to that, where they're unable to actually be able to give you all 4 services. And 36% of them do not know the difference between an officer and enlisted. In the recruiting centers, all the time, when someone would come, and not really recruiting centers normally near a military installation, but let's say in Illinois, someone who's really not affiliated with the military at all, they're not sure, the difference between a officer or enlisted. Individuals who are in college, who are interested in the Army, when they come in, many times we have to sit down and explain to them the differences between if they were to go in enlisted or go through OCS channels. Right? Propensity to join the military, it ranges from 5 to 24%. It's a slide, 2 slides ahead. I'm gonna show you the slim number of individuals that we have to choose from. When you look at the overall population that is within the United States, and when we whittle it down, you'll see the challenges we have in regards to getting that gem, that individual who will be one day the Sergeant Major of the Army. The Army, it typically ranks as the first or second service of choice. Right? When we look at most recruiting centers, you're going to have all the services there. And I would say most times the Army has the largest number of recruiters within that area. Obviously, we do it for a reason. We want to get out and we want to get the masses. We want to take advantage of where the Air Force may have one airman, who's doing recruiting for their service, and we might have 4 or 5 getting after that same market. And actually, sometimes with the Air Force, they may even have an extended area. They may cover another recruiting center, let's say, probably 2 hours away, but they're still covering that area also. One person's doing that job, whereas we might have 5 individuals covering that same area. The youth, they're delaying the traditional milestones of adulthood, meaning they did a survey back in 1965. We could say 77% of today's of the youth were graduating college, getting married, finding a stable job, so on and so forth. And when we did the survey back in 2015, it was drastically less for both male and female. When we talk about the propensity, that's when we get with the Army Marketing Research Group, and they tag team with us in regards to just being able to get after the mission. I'll pass it on to Mr. Cox for this.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is James Cox. I'm with the Army Marketing and Research Group. And one of the things that we do, we conduct national marketing analysis based on to inform the American public on what they think of the Army as an institution. So our job at the Army Marketing and Research Group to work hand in hand with the recruiting commands are to better inform them so that those individuals, not just our prospect market, which are 17 to 24-year-olds, but their influencers included. We want them to understand the Army so that they recommend, support, or consider armed service. So one of the things that Sergeant Major Bauer was saying was they're more inclined when they're able to talk to someone, to speak to someone. So what we do at our level is basically to give them that information to better inform them so that when they seek out a recruiter, they're better informed so that it's easier for the recruiter to actually do that job. So one of the things that we do there with the Army Marketing and Research Group is that to work hand in hand with USAREC. I'm retired Army. I did 23 years active duty and I also spent 13 years as an Army recruiter in USAREC. So that background better helps me to be at the national strategic level to assist recruiting commands. So that's what we bring working hand in hand with USAREC.
Another thing I just want to touch on, a reason why our number is so low in regards to propensity to enlist, that 5 to 24% that we saw, it's because many of today's youth are not inclined to want to leave their family and friends. They don't want to leave their relatives. That's an issue. And also another issue in regards to why we sometimes get the pushback is because family and friends, they oppose them joining the military service, right? Obviously, when it comes to competition, we know the Army is competing against, corporate America. We're competing against the Fortune 500 companies. It's one of the things that as leaders within recruiting, we always explain that, hey, we're a Fortune 500 company ourselves. So when we're out there and we are selling the Army, we're explaining the benefits that an individual can receive from the Army. We explain to them how the Army is a Fortune 500 company, and we break down all of the benefits that can apply to them. But as we see, when it comes to wages and some of the compensation packages, obviously corporate America has us a little bit, so we're still fighting that battle there. College, if you ask, there's a few recruiters who are actually in this room right now. If you ask them, when they go to a high school in the beginning of a school year, and they go into a classroom, do a classroom presentation, so you have about 35 smiling faces in that classroom, and you ask them, what are you doing after high school? Every hand will raise and say they're going to college. Now we know in the end, by the time June rolls around, that doesn't happen all the time. But on the onset, that's what everybody has planned. And so what we do when we go into the schools, we try to show them the benefits of them joining the Army or the Army Reserve and still being able to have that ability to go to college. So what we do is we go into the schools and we talk to the counselors and we explain to them, that we are not trying to take Johnny or Sally, but we're trying to benefit them, and we explain things that we have in regards to an individual can have the ability to be in the Army and actually go to school at the same time. And we have colleges that work hand in hand with that. It's a concurrent admissions program, and we show them all the schools that are listed there, and we show the administrators, and then we also show the parents to get them more involved when it comes to that. All right, next slide, please. Right. When I talked about our population, so as we can see, we look at a slide, You know, we're looking at 33.4 million. You know, that's a large population. That's a large pool. But when we, you know, when we sift through everything and we take everything into account, in the end, you're talking about only 136K that's available for us to get after. And you look at a lot of the reasons why individuals aren't eligible. You know, and the sad thing is when when a recruiter sits down and explains to mom and dad, hey, your son or daughter may not be eligible based on some of these, you know, disqualifiers here, it opens their eyes a little bit more because a lot of people have misconceptions. They have misconceptions of how it may have been years ago when their father or uncle or someone within their family had joined the Army. And we explain to them that, you know, we're very thorough in regards to everything, that individuals are going to go through a actual physical with a doctor at the military entrance processing station, and that individual is going to go be very thorough with them, and we're going to ensure that this individual has no medical issues that would exclude them from being able to join the military. Also, I want to explain some of the challenges that we have is the low unemployment. You know, some places we're dealing with 3 to 7%, you know, unemployment rate. When there's less jobs, the picking is a little more fruitful, so to speak. It's a little more bountiful. But when the unemployment rate is low, those become challenges to us because, like I said in the previous slide, we're competing against corporate America, and sometimes not even corporate America itself, just the job at home, because, you know, Tony Bowers has the ability to stay at home and take care of his family as opposed to joining the Army. So those are things we deal with all the time in regards to that. And also a lot of our challenges is high school dropout. And in the next 30 years, high school graduation is going to continue to decline. And the way it is, we have a very low percentage in regards to individuals who have GEDs who join the Army as opposed to those who have a college degree. We're mandated by Congress for 90% has to be high school graduates. You know, each year when we have our recruiting mission, so we have those challenges there. So our job is to try to keep Johnny and Sally in school. So when we get an individual to join, let's say August 1st, school opens, August 10th, you know, Johnny has enlisted in the Army and he's now a future soldier for us. We have to, besides ensure that we get him ready for, you know, BCT, we have to also ensure that we make sure he or she graduates from high school. So we're actually going there, talking to the counselors, you know, doing the follow-ups with them, ensuring that you know, Private Bowers is going to graduate in May time frame and be able to go to basic training. So those are some of the challenges that we have in regards to that. And like I said, if you look at it, you know, initially it looks like a great number with that 33 million, but then, like I said, when we sift through everything, it's only 136K. Next slide, please. All right, the ASVAB. And I would like to say everyone who is in the Army has taken the ASVAB in order to enter. And what we try to do also, we try to take this ASVAB and utilize it at the high schools. We get some pushback from the administrators because a lot of the high schools are pushing tests, and I don't mean pushing tests as an ASVAB. They're pushing tests in order for everyone to meet the core requirements in order to graduate. So that's a challenge for us to be able to try to say, can we use 3 days during a school year, for us to come and administer the ASVAB at your school? And a lot of times when we go to talk to the counselors, we explain to them, we are not trying to get your students to join the Army. We are trying to broaden their horizons, because there's an actual interp that we do, a career exploration interp, where an individual takes the ASVAB at the school. Our soldiers are trained, and they can go in and they can be able to help determine or help guide someone in regards to a sort of career path that they're interested in based on how they did on the actual aptitude test right there. Where hypothetically, and I'll just use an analogy, an individual said they wanted to be a nurse, and then come to find out that they are afraid of the sight of blood. That might not be the actual occupation that an individual should be interested in. So, you know, the ASVAB test is definitely a test that measures for future military occupational success. Like I said, I'll allude down to that last bullet over there. So 50 or above is our 1 to 3 alpha, and that's 60%. Congress mandated we have to have 60% of that 1 to 3 alpha to be able to join. And those individuals who are the category 4 or 3 Bravo, so that's anyone less than a 50 who's able to score, I mean, who's able to pass the test and enlist, they're saying that not until after, you know, they're in training, the end of training, do they meet the, you know, did they meet up with the same, I guess, say performance as the 3 alpha. So like I said, our job is a challenging job in regards to that, but you know, our soldiers are equipped to get after it every day. Next slide, please. All right, so in regards to national and local marketing, like I said, Mr. Cox, and he's going to jump in and talk a little more in regards to the, you know, AMRG where he works at, but also within Recruiting Command, we work with the Marketing Engagement Brigade. And the Marketing Engagement Brigade, they have the Golden Knights, they have the Army Marksmanship Team, you know, they have the assets that come out to the high schools, the STEM program, you know, the science, technology, you know, English and math. Those are the things that that the schools are interested in, and we have actually mobile assets that we bring out, displays that we bring out to the schools in order to get the students to realize that there's more to the Army than what they may see or may have heard from relatives in the past and everything. Mr. Cox, I'll turn it over to you a little bit.
So one of the things I would like to add is for the national and local marketing, the outreach and engagement, which we relay the purpose of the values of the Army. There's a few things that we have uncovered, and anything that we do at the Army Marketing Research is based on research. We have found out we're dealing with the Generation Z population right now, and the average Gen Zer is 21 years of age right now. They're operating on 5 devices, and they have an 8-second attention span. So how do we market to that? We're finding out based on research that our target age market is 17 to 24 years of age, and they are more product to purpose. What do they think of us as an Army, their Army? So based on the research that they've done, it shows that they went out and asked the American public of what do they think of the Army. And we first uncovered this when I started 5 years ago. And it was kind of sad to find out, from me being a prior soldier, that they actually thought, and not me saying this, but the American public, when we did the research, they thought of the Army as the lower left-hand quadrant, and we joined the Army because we had nothing else to do. So how do we combat that? We have to make sure that we're diverse in our competencies and capabilities, not just along with personnel and individuals, but we also have to speak to them on their way that they would like to receive communication. So years ago, when I was a recruiter out there, we did the phone calls and things like that. Well, now our target age market is on social media. We have to communicate them where they are. So that's how we assist Recruiting Command, because we do that research, whether it be multicultural. We go to market in total market, meaning that we speak to everyone, not just based on race or ethnicity, but based on backgrounds, culture, Hispanic, African American. We have to get all of that and provide that to the recruiting force. So by show of hands, how many of you have seen the last commercial that we did called Cyber? The cyber computer, where it goes down and it reaches out to the hacker. Does everyone know that there was an Easter egg code provided into that commercial where it specifically targeted, I don't like to say the word targeted, but reached people that understood coding? There was an Easter egg code in there that drove individuals that have that skill to a cyber command website that you can do civilian instant hiring for those who have that background. Those who did not understand that Easter egg coding in there was driven to the original normal GoArmy.com to get more information. One of the things we do at AMRG is provide that information so that we inform them more. So when they go to GoArmy.com, they're able to find the information that they're looking for to better inform them. So when they hit the zip code in GoArmy.com, it sends them to the recruiting command, and they are better informed. So those are some of the things that we have dealing with the Generation Z population, making sure that we're ownable, credible, and differentiating from any other service. So those are just some of the things that we do at a top level at the Army Marketing Research Group. So I just want to leave you with that and how we support the recruiting command. Thank you.
The last thing I'm going to touch on is the last bullet there, the addition of the physical and emotional screening through the use of the OHPAT, which is the Occupational Physical Assessment Test. Is everybody aware of the OHPAT? Okay, and in regards to that, you know, like I said, not insulting anyone's intelligence, but it's a 4-part test. It has the standing long jump, the seated power throw, the interval aerobic run, and a strength deadlift. And it's 4 different scoring levels. And what we do is it's able to serves as it puts the person in the right job based on their physical aptitude. And what we do is, even if an individual has a job that is a moderate, we still have them go beyond that in regards to when it comes to the OHPAT and everything, because you never know what will happen in regards to a person prior to them leaving, where they may have to end up renegotiating their contract, and the next job that they choose, instead of it being moderate, will be significant. So so the OHPAT has become very important to us, and it's an event that created another challenge to our soldiers in regards to administering it, because you have to make sure, especially in places where it snows, where it has bad weather, that you find the right location for them to be able to do that aerobic run. Because, you know, say, hey, let's run it in the back of our recruiting center. It might not be conducive, especially if it's a gravel you know, road, and you happen to have ice or something on it that'll cause someone some issues. So we have to go and communicate with a lot of the Army Reserve units as well as National Guard units, doing a little synergy there. If not even the local gyms in the area that might have the space for us to be able to put that equipment in there, for us to be able to utilize that when we administer the OHPAT. So CSM, Sergeant Major, that's it for me.
Well, thank you from the USAREC and AMRG teams. Next, we'll transition to the initial military training portion with Command Sergeant Major Gragg. Sergeant Major.
Thank you, Sergeant Major. Good morning, team. Good morning, everybody. I am Michael Gragg, your IMT Sergeant Major. Excuse me, I'm a little sick today, so if I'm coughing or sniffling into the microphone, please ignore that. This morning we'll talk about some things that IMT is responsible for, and then we'll go into the areas that you would like to discuss later on when we get to the question and answer session. Currently we're responsible for the oversight of initial military training for approximately 120,000 soldiers a year, plus or minus the in-strength increase numbers that drive us crazy. All components, enlisted, warrant, and officer alike. We're also the fitness proponent for the Army, which means that ACRT, OHPAT development, things of that nature are all fall under our purview as well. And that'll be the crux of our presentation today, but we're prepared to talk about the things that you want to talk about as well. Today I'm joined by Dr. Chip East, who is basically the foremost expert on military fitness in the enterprise. He's authored several books, and he will be leading off the presentation today. So please, Dr. East.
Next slide, please. So we won't go through the whole slide, but basically the OHPAT went FOC in 3 January 2017, a full 6 months ahead of the time that it was supposed to be FOC. So we're building this and flying it at the same time, and we're even working on nomenclature. So I would, you know, in general, as you start to see the color codes there, they pertain to physical demand categories of of high or heavy and significant and moderate. And it's really important for you to understand that nobody fails the OHPAT. If you don't score at the level that you need to score to, you can retake the OHPAT as many times as necessary. It simply means that you're not ready to ship to initial entry training. So that's important to remind everyone. I would draw your attention to the upper right-hand quadrant, and I'll just focus on a couple of key facts, and I have a backup slide if we get to it. But basically what you're seeing there is it's really not the percentage of non-grads, but the percentage of non-first class grads. For example, what that means is that they didn't graduate on time. And if you look at the black versus the gray, which is the heavy versus significant, these are individuals who scored heavy on the OHPAT and yet went to a significant MOS. For example, 31 Bravo. So if I went to a 31 Bravo OSIT and I scored black, I'm going to increase my on-time graduation by about 3%, and for women, it's about 4%. So if you look at the lower left, you see a really kind of classic example of the influence of the OHPAT on a recruit's ability to engage training in IET and be successful. Those are 31 Bravos, and you're looking at males, it's about a 6% increase in on-time graduation, and for females, it's about a 10% increase. So you're not required to score black to go to the 31 Bravo OSIT, but those who do graduate at a significantly higher rate in their first term. So I've got another slide I'll show you a little bit later on first quartile versus fourth quartile. So we're just getting started with the OHPAT, and what we're seeing, if you look at the bottom right, I know that's hard to see, but if you just look at the green line, that's the OSIT line. If you look at the blue line, I guess that's the BCT line. BCT line's a little harder to move because it's only the 10-week BCT as opposed to the 16-week, 15-week OSIT. But we're starting to see a downward trend in attrition in all phases, and in particular, women going to OSIT training. So that's a big help for us. So I think it's way too early to declare victory on the OHPAT, but it's just something we're going to have to work on as it relates to the 136,000 young people who are fully qualified to enter the service. So we're real pleased with where we are today, and we'll have a full up review in January of next year. So next slide, please. In reality, and this is something we're incredibly excited about and has seemed to have begun to catch on relative to the future of the Army. General Frost likes to talk about this as a generational shift in the way we train, develop, and care for soldiers, which I would agree with. The concept of holistic health and fitness came about 2 years ago through the Human Dimensions Strategic Working Group and has since found its way into the Army Campaign Plan Strategic Objective number 7. And what you see there is the work of a broad group of individuals from MedCom OTSG to Public Health Command to ForceCom to throughout the entire Army to help work on first order principles. The basic structure of holistic health and fitness, as you see down below, is governance is the key to all of this. And we believe that once we get this governance piece right, other things will start to fall into place. Within this, or beneath the governance piece, are a change in how we deliver training to soldiers through certified strength and conditioning specialists or an increased quality of master fitness trainers, perhaps someday a military occupational specialty that has to do with physical training, like the Australian Defence Force, and also, athletic trainers, physical therapists, behavioral counselors, lifestyle coaches, the whole deal. And basically, the idea behind that is we got to put it somewhere. So the idea behind holistic health and fitness is we're going to create a center in the battalion AO as best we can, and that center is going to represent where soldiers go to train both health and fitness aspects. Programs would come after that, and basically then we're looking at a wholesale revision from an H2F standpoint in terms of PME, both for NCOs and officers. So when you go to, you know, the basic leader course or the advanced leader course, you're starting to see a systematic, hierarchical, integrated professional military education program for all individuals. So we're working on our demonstration sites right now, and hopefully we'll have some good news for you in the next month or so that our demonstration sites are going to move forward, and we'll go from there. So next slide, please.
So,
I'm sorry.
when you talk about fitness and how we want to transition the Army to the future and prepare ourselves for the future fight, what we have done, you know, in the past, we spent a lot of money on technology, but we haven't really invested in the most lethal weapon system on the battlefield, which is the American soldier. So what we're looking at now is that we have an Army that is not physically optimized. Right now, we optimize ourselves probably 4 months a year, about 2 months prior to the PT test, and maybe about a month after or so. So, you know, in that meantime, in between time, people fall off on their physical fitness. It's just the natural ebb and flow of what we're doing right now. So we're looking at ways to increase that fitness level of the Army itself and to optimize soldiers in a year-round type of atmosphere. So looking at this chart, you'll see that, you know, in 1980, we had a 3-event PT test, and that 3-event PT test came into effect. It was not combat related, it was more health related. It was about, you know, testing your endurance as opposed to testing your ability to do your job. And what we've looked at and learned over time is that we had our focus wrong. We needed to focus on getting people ready to do their job as opposed to having people have endurance. So the APFT in its current format right now is about 39% predictive of your ability to do your combat-related job. Now, I know there are people out there saying, how is that so? Well, I mean, if you look at the average person who is not doing something extra, if you're just doing the 3 amigos, it's only 39% effective. Now, we know that we have studs and studettes across our formation that score 300 plus on a PT test. That's because they're doing more than just the 3 amigos for the most part. Those individuals are dedicated to fitness, so therefore they will be able to perform their task at a higher clip than the ones that are just doing the bare minimum. But we're looking at a bare minimum type of individual. Whereas the Army Combat Readiness Test will be about 81% predictive of an individual's ability to do their job, because we're basing that test off of the warrior task and battle drills that have been set up in the system. So the warrior task and battle drills are the driving factor behind the events that we utilize to formulate this Army Combat Readiness Test of the future. So why are we doing this? We're doing this to optimize the soldier, to prepare our soldiers to go into combat and do their jobs without injury. Because right now, you know, unfortunately we injure people on a regular basis by asking them to do their job. What we don't want to do is injure individuals, because an injured individual, you know, degrades your readiness, degrades our ability to go and do what the nation wants us to do. So if we are preparing individuals physically to fight the fight, then we are a better, more optimized organization ready to defend this nation against all enemies.
So what I would remind everyone is that the ACRT or the OHPAT are simply a component of a larger holistic health and fitness system. Yes. So underneath governance is the concept of surveillance, and we all know if we ask our buddies down here about Gen Zers or millennials, we'll talk about how they pay attention to what we pay attention to and to what we assess and to what we surveil. And so it's important that we get the surveillance piece right, because it drives their perceptions of what they need to do to train. And I will just point out on the next slide that basically we spent, next slide please. We spent about 2.5 years working on the what we affectionately call the BISPR study, the Baseline Soldier Physical Readiness Requirement Study. And shout out to Command Sergeant Major Eckert, who was on our initial team down here in terms of developing that study. It was within the purview of DA XORD 04113. And basically what we saw is, it kind of reminds me of the current discussion about multi-domain battle, and that is we have to focus on multi-domain fitness. And for all intent and purposes, there's approximately 5 domains that we need to focus on. And when we think about warrior task and battle drills, and when we think about the tasks that we ask soldiers to do, those tasks fall to a certain degree around the entire structure of that triangle up there, with strength, power at the upper end of it, you know, endurance, whether that's muscular endurance or cardiorespiratory endurance, and then speed, power, and agility, and the nuance between the tips of that triangle. So if we're expecting soldiers to do those tasks, especially under load, especially under the duress of combat, then we need to prepare them both from a system standpoint with something like holistic health and fitness that has the right people, the right facilities, the right equipment, but also from a surveillance standpoint with an assessment that continually informs commanders about the ability of their soldiers to execute their warfighter mission. So,
and one thing that we have to work with our partners with is specifically about the facilities and how we utilize our facilities. Oftentimes our facilities are right now currently as gyms. They are not training facilities. They are more recreational facilities. And we're trying to change the focus of our gyms to make them more of training facilities. So they are the training platform. So the use of our gyms right now is, we probably get a good 6 hours of use out of our gym. And the rest of the time it sits idle because of, if it's not being utilized during PT time or during lunchtime or right after work hours, then the main part of the gym is usually empty. And then, the racquetball court or the basketball court, how much utilization is that, or what does that do for us as far as an Army? So we're looking at how we have configured our MWR facilities and making them training ranges more, and assign those ranges to units to utilize during their training plan. So they have to actually train and schedule the fitness facility just like they would train and schedule the M4 range, or they would schedule the Table 8 for gunnery. The same thing, the same way that they put that on the long-range training calendar and the daily training calendar is how we're going to try to implement fitness into the training regimen for the organizations as well. If you could go to backup slide number 29, it will show. We won't be much longer, Sergeant Major Mansker, I promise.
You're good. Just impressed by you knew what slide number was.
This will show the domains and how the test will break down into the areas.
So while she's looking for that, I'll do a public service announcement. In just a very short period of time, you're going to see the new FM 7-22, which is the doctrine that underlies holistic health and fitness. If you have a current copy, go ahead and jettison that. The new one won't look anything like that at all. You're going to see a focus in 3 primary areas on fitness, we're still toying with the names: organic health, the well-being, the force multiplier, and then lastly, from the head up, cognitive skills and cognitive awareness. So you're going to see a whole different model that's going to drive holistic health and fitness as well as other components.
So these are the events of the ACRT as is currently comprised, and how they fit into those fitness areas that Dr. East was talking about just recently.
Except no sit-ups.
Exactly, except for the sit-ups, which is a personal removal for Sergeant Major Eckert specifically, who threatened me if I didn't take the sit-ups out that I would no longer have a career in the Army. So there you go, Sergeant Major Eckert, no more sit-ups. Yes. And now if you could go back to number 26, please. There we go.
So this was the slide I mentioned earlier, and I like this slide for a lot of reasons. If you look on the the left-hand side there, you've got percent injury, and you've got BCT men, BCT women. And what I think is powerful about this is first quartile OHPAT performance versus fourth quartile OHPAT performance. I think it's fairly undeniable that the more fit you are, the less you get hurt, and the more likely it is that you're going to graduate on time. Now, this is on-time graduation, so some of the 85% who don't graduate, or some of the 15+% that don't graduate on time from BCT, and the 23% that don't graduate on time from OSIT will ultimately graduate, but every one of those individuals cost us additional monies, and the likelihood of you graduating if you don't graduate on time goes down exponentially. So it really is, I think, a powerful slide about how important fitness is before these individuals come to training. And we don't expect elite levels of fitness. What we want young people to do is to engage in some level of adaptive physical training before they ship to basic training, so that we don't break them in the first 3 weeks that they're in training.
Absolutely. And then one last slide, please. If you could go to slide 30, please. And this right here is the events that clearly identify the events and how they break out for you.
So if you're at Fort Leonard Wood next week, come out and join us.
Or at least come out and watch.
Or come out and watch. So.
Absolutely. So you can see where we're doing, and then we're working on another Force Comp pilot with them, as you see at JBLM in March. So if you're at the JBLM area and you want to see what it looks like, please come out and observe. And then, Sergeant Major, that's all we have. Thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you. And now we'll transition to equipping with Sergeant Major Mansker. Sergeant Major.
Hey, first of all, good morning. A big believer in, we start this with a purpose, is why I'm up here going to talk to you about. So you've heard from this session side of the house how they're improving, how they're marketing, how they're getting after great recruits and the quality recruits, and how you come through the IMT side, and really how we train them to prepare them to be soldiers. But one thing that we have not done since all of us have been in the service is improve our equipping process at the soldier level. So that's the purpose. What I hope to do is facilitate some dialogue with you, some discussion from you, because everybody in this audience is a key member of making sure we get this right. So really the purpose for me is changing business processes to enable the modernization and the readiness at the soldier level. That's critical. So we have learned a lot over the years from different advents, whether it be RFI, which most people enjoyed, ADO, which many enjoyed. But I will tell you the difference is there will be accountability to this, what I'm about to talk about, because that's critical to us. We have to reduce excess. You've heard us throughout the Army how we're reducing excess in the motor pools, supply arms, what have you, but we have the same challenge in the supply chain where we are required to receive, store, and issue things. Our storage bill is incredible. It's much larger than the requirement, and that's what we have to do. So we have to reduce the excess in order for us to sustain and modernize the required equipment. So all I'm going to talk about today, as many of you know, as TA-50 or OCIE, that's really what I'm going to talk about today. But it's about individual soldier equipping. We talked about sustained readiness models. Well, we need to sustain the readiness of a soldier as well. So here's some facts. This is a 5-year plan up on the screen. We've already started some very limited, if you will, pilots, tests, what have you, where it's not a distraction to you in the field. We're doing it at different areas that are more remote, where we can kind of test this out and work out the kinks, if you will. CIS have not changed since any of us have been in the Army. In fact, I would offer probably many of the veterans in here, it hasn't changed since then either. So I'd like to kind of put in context a little bit what the problem is. We have about $1 billion requirement, but we have $10 billion in equipment. No business would ever operate with $9 billion of excess. And you have to understand, that $9 billion of excess includes Vietnam era, Desert Storm era, every area you can think of equipment. So we are working hard to get rid of that equipment and reducing the burden, because we cannot modernize $10 billion. We can probably modernize at the $1 billion rate over time. We currently have 75 CIFs around the Army. But here's the point that really, this is where we got to get we have to change as well, change us in this room. There's currently over 200 different menus in those CIFs. So if you think about that, that equals personality, okay? We're about equipping and modernizing and making soldiers ready to fight. We're not about you like X, you like Y, and you want Z. We've got to baseline this enough where it leave a little bit of flexibility where you can have the stuff you really, the gadgets, add-ons, but we got to baseline this. So we're working hard to change how we equip soldiers in the OCIE, and I won't bore you with, and I could talk at length about this, to the left of that, which is the receive and store side of the house, and I'll talk about it there's 4 different efforts we're putting on right now we're going after. First, a soldier as a system. Once we equip a soldier, we don't continue to, if you will, recycle and turn it in and issue and recycle and turn it in and issue. They retain it through their career, and we modernize it smartly. When we modernize equipment, we just come forward to a camp, post, and station and modernize the whole organization. Versus if you came to that CIF 2 years prior, you got the old stuff, you're here now and you get the new stuff, maybe. Or maybe you get the old stuff that somebody just turned in. The goal is, once you've been fitted, once you've sewn your name tags, you put your rank on, you've done all this great stuff, it's just the way you want it. All of us know in this room, the hardest thing to do, well, there's 2 things hard to do when you clear, CIF and housing. But we want to reduce the CIF burden. So what we're going after is the specialty equipment will still get turned in. We still need to require that because not every unit you go to, not every position you go to, you require all that specialty equipment. So we're going to retain the specialty equipment such as coveralls, flight suits, what have you, things like that at the local level. So if you're going to the right position, you get the right equipment versus you taking it somewhere and putting it in your duffel bag and you continue to take it to the next place and you leave it in your duffel bag, which is not great supply chain management as well. And also it's train as we fight. And I will talk a little bit about this. This is probably everybody in this room. This is probably where you'll find maybe the biggest discouragement or disparity in my thoughts on this is we're going to have the supply room, supply sergeant really involved in this process. And that's what it's about. It's how we do it in combat. In combat, a soldier has a piece of gear that's flippled, lost, damaged, what have you. We replace it through the supply sergeant on the normal battlefield. Don't think Afghanistan or Iraq right now because there's generally, another $1 billion of equipment sitting there for to refurb you. And then really the last part, well, excuse me, the second to last part is really CIF transformation, taking the CIFs and making them something that's not a distraction to you to train your soldiers. So how much time do we spend in CIFs? And I tell you ad nauseum that I can tell you exactly how much time we spend in some CIFs. Some do much better than others. But I'd say it's not about the time you spend there. It's about the quality of the gear you get, and it's about the right equipment you received at the CIFs, and that's important. And the last thing is really on our side is to streamline the process. So to understand this a little bit, CIFs, the policy comes from the Army G4, Sergeant Major Bell. And then it comes from the priorities of the Army G3, Sergeant Major Bardicke, I'm not sure if he's in here. And then it really comes to AMC, which is I am Sergeant Major Mansker, the Army Material Command Sergeant Major. Talking faster than I can. My brain going. But my job is to execute the mission on behalf of the Army to ensure this. So I am going to talk just a little bit about some of these lines of effort here. Don't take these as concrete because these are really, in my view, until we shake out the duffel bag a little bit, we're not going to know if we're doing it right, doing smarter. We do not want to distract you. So the goal is when they leave the IET environment, they come to you equipped. They already have all the gear they require minus the specialty equipment. And we're going to do this smart because I don't need the perception of young soldier comes out of IET and he's got 6 duffel bags. That's not the picture we want. And by the way, we will lose gear that way. So we're gonna, some things we're not gonna send fully equipped, such as IBA, such as sleeping systems, what have you, to reduce the bulk, reduce the if you will, the cubic feet, if you will, amount of duffel bags. So that's important. everybody in this room is an owner of this process, though. It has to be where we all own it. It's just like your vehicles. It's just like everything else, your weapon system. You own it. You have to. We have to get to the point of where there is accountability, where there are inventories. You know, what many of us remember as we did the layouts once a month, once a quarter, depending on local policies. That's critical because we are going to go very close to what you know as ADO. Supply sergeant says X is missing X. There's a statement of charges, a flippable cash collection, what have you. And that supply sergeant is going to be able to put it on order. And it's coming to you directly. So that's how we fight. Another part of that is if a piece of equipment becomes unserviceable, the supply sergeant is going to be given enough, with commander's discretion, enough opportunity and the capability to say, piece of equipment is now damaged, we need a new one. So the new piece is going to come right to them, but the box is going to have another shipping label on it, which means you put it back, the old piece or the unserviceable, what you think is unserviceable, back in the box, and you send it back to our repair facilities. We've got to reduce this, so I won't show all, I don't think I have the chart in here anyways. I don't want to show you because you'll say, oh my gosh, you're taking Fort Bragg CIF away. But really, I want where they come to you equipped, we're not spending time at the CIF, and which does put a burden on the IET side, which we're prepared for. We're going to put, so as we drop down brick and mortar at the CIS, we have the capability and abilities to start to help them out so they're not burdened with it, because they can tell you that I don't need to put anything else in their rucksack right now. So that's how it's going to work in general. So I would like to go to the next slide. So if you see in the middle of that yellow block, if you cannot think of anything else, this is exactly what we're after. The soldier comes to you equipped, ready to go, ready to start training, ready to do whatever you need and have them need to do, versus as you will, some of us have a lot of scar tissue from CIFs. The most important thing I told you about a CIF it's not about how long you spend there. It's when you leave there, you have the right gear and you have all your gear. Because it does no good if you don't have your helmet, right? They're going to come there. So what it requires, though, is the in processing to a unit or organization is that they must fulfill the duty of accountability. They have to inventory the soldier's gear because we won't have that visibility. But I'll tell you, we're also coming up with some new things. Like you do med pros inside AKO now, you're going to be able to do your OCIE, kind of the same thing. You're going to be able to see soldier came from here, they didn't have this, and now it triggers the supply sergeant to order the required common baseline gear, if you will. So everything as you left of that soldier is really us. And then Tom Coleman's going to talk a little bit about the modernization side, the acquisition side more so, but really I'm just going to talk about the execution side within policy. And I look forward to your questions, but more importantly, I look forward to your help and also your pivotal role as a leader to help us make sure this is done right, to reduce the strain of going to CIFs, distractions of training time, and also your soldiers are equipped constantly versus, we've all been there where they didn't have the right size, so you generally had to go up 2 to 3 sizes higher. We're going to do it right. Let's do it right versus the $10 billion bill that we're going to pay on a $1 billion requirement. So we can't sustain nor modernize a storage issue of $10 billion. That number's a little high. It's probably higher because I'm sure there's plenty of connexes that that are not on ISM right now, that are not being tracked as and they're generally web gear, pistol belts. For all of you color guard, understand that. We're not trying to take stuff away from you. We're just trying to do better at what we do. So with that, Tom.
All right, well, thanks, Sergeant Major. So now this is awkward because I'm going to talk about trying to give you more equipment. So,
as long as you take something away, we're good.
So, yes, I'm Tom Coleman. I'm the Chief of Operations of Program Executive Office Soldier. How many people in here have heard of PEO-Soldier? How many people in here have gone through RFI? And so those are the same people that heard, because one and the same, basically. So I am from the acquisition side of the Army, specifically on the soldier side. Going to talk through a little bit about how the acquisition process works. Very simple. I've got a very easy to read and understand chart. We could flip forward to my backup. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. One more. Perfect. There's the Army acquisition slide.
Much simpler.
Should not have any problem for anybody to focus on and zip right through. All right, so if we can go back to my first slide. All right, so back, right there. Whoop, there we are. So that slide still looks a little busy, but it's a little bit simpler. And why do you care about the acquisition process right now? And I'm going to keep it very brief. You need to understand and care because you need to understand the baseline. As you listen to the Sergeant Major of the Army and the Chief of Staff of the Army, there's a lot of change rolling right now. There's a lot of interesting things that are getting ready to unfold in relation to soldier equipment. If you don't understand the basics of the process that we're currently operating under to field soldier equipment, you won't be able to properly influence change as it starts moving at Mach speed here in the coming months and years. So, but basically what this slide is telling you is equipping a soldier is not a one organization show by a long shot. If you look down the middle, you see the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Acquisition Logistics Technology. There's 12 program executive offices in there. They're commodity-based. I'm representing Soldier, one of those 12. Aviation and the communications, you can sort of figure the rest out as you go. Well, as an acquisition professional, we don't decide what we're going to field the soldier. That comes from the field. Specifically, it comes to us in a requirement, and that requirement comes out of one of these centers of excellence. Soldier pulls probably, PEO-Soldier, we pull about 85% of ours out of the Maneuver Center of Excellence. They're the ones that give us our requirements. So it's not us, it is TRADOC telling us what the requirement is. Now what you don't see here is the G staff, you don't see FORSCOM, and just envision that they are overlays on top of all of that because that's really the way it works. So when that requirement is coming from Fort Benning, Georgia to PEO-Soldier, let's say for a new body armor, a new plate. Well, Fort Benning says, hey, we want a plate that is going to weigh less than 2 pounds, and we want it to stop a 50 cal armor-piercing round. Okay, well, that's what they want. But is it really in the realm of reality? And that's where we rely on AMC, specifically if you look to the right side of that chart with the RDECOM, Research Development Engineering Centers. Those scientists and engineers help feed the technology into the requirements community so that they can still challenge industry, but yet it's a realistic requirement. So once we have a requirement for a realistic plate, it comes to the program executive office. We begin working with all of our vendors because we don't build plates in the Army. It's our industry partners, which is absolutely critical when it comes to equipping soldiers. From there, we begin the process of developing and down selecting, and we again reach back into AMC for the contracting command to put things on contract and to be able to procure. Once they're procured, we have to reach into Army Test and Evaluation Command to conduct all the testing. Once it gets fielded full-time, it goes back into AMC for long-term sustainment through the LCMCs. PEO-Soldier primarily with TACOM and CCOM for night vision, but you can sort of figure out the commodities as they go. So as you look at that chart, yep, it's a little bit busy, it's a little bit confusing, but understanding that a requirement's got to come from TRADOC, that requirement requires user feedback, which is coming from FORSCOM, the soldier, and then it works its way through the process, and ultimately we field a piece of equipment. Okay, so that's one of my 3 slides. Next slide. So when we talk about how we're going to equip a soldier, generally there are 3 methods that we're using right now in the Army. On the top, you've got Big A. That's where I'm at right now, Army acquisition. That's a 5-year process, basically, from the time that you start a requirement until you walk it all the way through to initial fielding, and then long-term sustainment. The organization underneath of that is the Army Rapid Capability Office, which is a fairly new organization. And you can hit Google on any one of these and get mission statements and a little clearer understanding of what they're doing. But the Army Rapid Capability Office is designed to go after formation-centric issues that's governed by the Board of Directors through the Secretary of the Army, Chief Staff of the Army, Sergeant Major of the Army, and then our boss, the Assistant Secretary of the Army for ALT. So those are things that you're talking about cyber security and warfare right now. They're big muscle movements. And then underneath of that, you've got the Rapid Equipping Force. How many people in here have heard of the Rapid Equipping Force? Those are the folks that can get you something very quick. They're located at Fort Belvoir, right down the street from where I'm located at PEO-Soldier. And their job is to get you unique items 6 months to a year and they're usually firing at about 6 months. And that's where you've identified something that you're going into a theater, so you're going into Afghanistan, one of your squad leaders identifies the best flashlight in the whole wide world, does all these super neat things that you need for that mission. Rapid Equipping Force can procure those for you and get them to you. Then it goes into a buy, try, decide, and then if it's something that needs to stick around, then it could transition to the Acquisition Corps as a program of record. And there's a lot of that going on right now. So the final slide, and this slide right here, I call it thoughts and discussion, because this isn't really about me talking anymore. This sort of cuts across the entire panel that's sitting up here. And you've got to look at how are we going to modernize the force as we move forward. And there's no answer coming from Coleman up here. We don't really know. But these are things that the senior leaders need to start thinking about, you sitting here, especially the non-commissioned officers. I see a lot of non-commissioned officers out here. On how are we going to do this? If we listen to the chief and the sergeant major of the Army, we understand that we need to be prepared. We understand that we have game-changing capability. The chief used the word 10x yesterday in his speech. I'm not sure if anybody heard that. They want game-changing capability. And then if you're going to bring that game-changing capability to the table, how do we do it? Probably everybody in here went through the beginning of OIF where we had some people with body armor, some without body armor. And once we fixed the body armor issue, then we had the issue with some people are wearing the old chocolate chip desert camouflage and the other ones are in UCP or OCP or UCP. How do we get standardized there? Do we need to get standardized? What is the tip of the spear for the Army? Anybody know how big the Army is right now, besides hopefully nobody up here?
We don't.
Anybody want to take a guess at the current size of the Army? About 1.1 million? Correct. So how many would be on the tip of the spear? Anybody have any idea? If you just took your 11s, 12s, 13 Foxes, 19s, about 130,000, I'd go with that. Probably between 94 and 110,000, somewhere around there. So is that who we need to worry about, getting the initial capability to them? Or do we need to be focused on everything? Do we need to get the equipment out at 100%? Does it depend? Where are we willing to assume risk? So those are some of the questions, because when you look at some of the examples I put up there, intra-soldier wireless, you know, if I can put a sight on your weapon that is smaller than an ACOG, that will put a reticle inside your enhanced night vision goggles that will allow you to see around corners, does everybody need to have that immediately? Or is that something we need to get at right now? If I can wirelessly communicate with the Net Warrior system without having to be in a classified network, and I can change now, I can hand those end user devices, which are just phones, to my German or United Kingdom counterpart, and we can exchange real-time information within battle space. Who do we need to get that to? When we talk about weapons, you hear a lot of talk about that. Next generation squad weapon, I can talk all day long offline. But you know, who needs to get that weapon? Is $10,000, $12,000 for a rifle cost prohibitive for a rifleman? Maybe, maybe not. So those are the kind of things that we need to start looking at as we try to get to 10x capability for the soldier. Is if we can get to 10x, 10 times the current capability, game-changing stuff, how are we going to field it? And the sergeants majors, the first sergeants, platoon sergeants, and squad leaders are the ones that are going to drive that feedback and push it back up, which in turn is going to help guide the Army. So those are the kind of things that we're sort of curious about from your foxhole out in the field. So with that, Sergeants Major, I think
I'm just going to add two things to what Tom just said. First of all, thanks, Tom. Is what you realize real quickly, or you should have realized very quickly, this is a team effort. All of us must work together, whether it's the acquisition, it's us operating it, it's you. We all have to work in conjunction, but the first part is understanding. So a shameful plug, and I'm going to do it anyways. Hey, Tom talked about labs. if you ever want to go to a lab, one of our research facilities, our decks, whether it's COMO, it's whatever you name it, whatever you utilize, and you want to know more about how we're testing it, how we're engineering it, I offer to you, you're welcome. Come visit our decks, our ARL, our NATIC. The door is open. In fact, we appreciate you coming in there and talking to us, to our scientists and engineers, because it really helps them understand the purpose of what they're doing, because sometimes they don't get to see the effects. And so Major Clements is here as well, so I would offer to, yeah, there you are, way back. I thought it was this younger guy, but I knew better. It's back. But really, I would offer too, as well, as visit his PEOs as well, because you really want to see really what they're working on. I mean, they can show you most things. Some things you understand they can't show you. And so the dying question I know is in this room, and I know I'm going to get it. I'm just going to answer it before you ask it of me. Is when are we going to modernize to the new pattern of all OCIE? Right? Not anytime soon. 7 years probably is still where we're at. But you know what Tom talked about is prioritization of who really requires that equipment. I'll be offered to you, it's not the people in the Pentagon. Nothing against you, but I'm not there anymore, so I can do it. And also what Tom talked about was how do we modernize smartly? That's critical. We have a finite amount of money, the Army does, and it has to focus its efforts. And that's, if you hear what the Chief is talking about, if you didn't hear it yesterday, he laid out 6 things yesterday. Those are our focused efforts on how we're going to modernize as fast as possible with the 10X capability. So with that, SMA.
Okay, let's give our panelists a big round of applause. So I don't know if we mentioned up front or not, we are live streaming, so we do have some questions coming in from live stream, and I'll start off with some questions that are from the audience here. And always, as you're welcome to feel free to walk up to one of the microphones and ask a question. We'll kick it off, and I think this is a very fitting question. It's one of my personal initiatives under the Chief Staff of the Army's #1 priority, which is readiness. Does ACRT increase deployability?
So the answer to that, direct answer to that is it will increase deployability, but the challenge with ACRT and the implementation of the ACRT is the policy behind it. All the research and all the statistics and all the data that we put together will mean nothing if the policy, specifically the profiling policy that we currently have, does not address the challenges that we have in our Army. So we're developing the test, and I hate to punt, but we have to punt the policy portion to the Army G1 and to the Army senior leadership to address the policy portions, Sergeant Major.
Okay.
So wait, if I might. So I think if you're wanting the empirical evidence and you think of the OHPAT as somewhat of a surrogate for the ACRT, which there's some considerable overlap there. Yes. We're already seeing significant improvements or significant reductions in injuries in the IET world, which we would expect to translate directly out into the force.
Very good. This is a question for our folks at AMC. Are we doing better now at understanding equipment needs and integrating that on the soldiers across multiple PEOs?
Yes, I agree that we are much more integrated and nested more than we've ever been before, because we have to. We have to do this smarter because the money has to go to the right places at the right time. We talk, I guarantee we talk to PEOs at least daily, and we're in the same meetings. There's no more, if you will, silos of efforts. It is a combined team effort, and I don't know if Tom will agree with me on this one, but at least I will. Go ahead, Tom.
Yes, no, I absolutely agree with it. We're looking at it from a couple different areas. PEO-Soldier specifically has the requirement to integrate all soldier equipment on the individual. We do that through a lab called the Warrior Integration Site down at Fort Belvoir. So to echo the invitation to any of the leaders out here to come to PEO-Soldier and see what we're doing, especially if you're in the NCR, which not too many divisions are stationed here, but nonetheless, you'd be welcome to come there. So we are integrating it at the soldier level through a series of both computer-aided and actual models, as well as some integration facilities and load effects and assessment programs that we run through the maneuver battle lab at Fort Benning. So soldier specific, that answers that one. In relation to how does a soldier fit inside of a vehicle, yes, we work with our higher headquarters within the Assistant Secretary of the Army, the systems of systems integration and with the ARDEX within AMC to ensure that we don't build a mobile gun system that a soldier can't fit in wearing complete body armor.
Okay. Next question, focus for USAREC and AMRG. How can we counteract the negative stigmas to military service that are so prevalent in social media?
Good question on that. So one of the things that we can do is that, so the things that we have that are out there in social media is, it's hard to kind of police the actual soldier at that time, but far as how we present ourselves as a brand, and it's kind of weird saying the Army is a brand, but it is. A brand is what someone thinks of that particular brand when they see it. So when they see the United States Army, they sometimes, again, based on research, they want us to be, and you can jump in on that one.
Okay. So another thing we do in regards to, I guess, eliminating the stigma is in recruiting command, our soldiers who come out and recruit, we tell them to be giving guests. And so what that means is within their environment, they're there for 3 years as a detailed recruiter. And they have to get out within the community. And they show the community itself what the Army is all about in regards to maybe Habitat to Humanity, working with the local troubled youth, things of that nature. And so we dispel a lot of the rumors, a lot of the stigma that is involved with the military.
Okay. Next question. Why is there a difference between PT standards at certain schools, i.e. airborne, EFMB, and air assault, but in the regular Army, and they have the same standard regardless of gender, but in the regular Army, the standards for gender are different for the APF team?
So historically, that was put in place as a tool to try to equalize things across the enterprise to ensure that we were able to assess and meet the standards of all the individuals who are in the Army. We have looked at that in our future testing. All our future testing will be gender neutral. So it won't be specifically based off of race or gender or age group for that matter. It'll be whether you can do the task or not. Because as we have learned over time, the mountain that you have to climb or the bullet that's coming at you does not care what sex you are or how strong you are or what MOS you are or anything else of that nature. So we are normalizing that. So all the tests of the future will be gender neutral.
Okay. Next question. Are we looking at issuing things like IFAC-2s to IET soldiers so they train as they are equipped in their normal units in combat?
So, you want to jump in on that one? So,
I'm all about you answering questions.
So it's a matter of scale and scope. You know, given the IFAC-2s to our young soldiers as they go through the training environment, they are able to train on some of these individual tasks and individual equipment as they go through, but they're not able to keep them because we just don't have the inventory to give it to them for them to transition through. But they are training on a lot of these things, and the one thing that we have to worry about is giving them live needles and things of that nature in the barracks. Unfortunately, young minds do young things, and so if you teach IVs in week 3 of basic training, then in week 4, 5, 6, and 7 of basic training, everybody is giving IVs in the barracks. So we have to limit their contact with these things as we get them ready and more mature into the enterprise, and then as they get to their first UA, then they will have those individual things issued to them. Does that answer your questions, Sergeant Major?
Okay, thank you. Let's go out to our field for a question. Go ahead.
So there's a number of questions across the stream. When the recruiting command folks were talking, two questions came up immediately. One, why is it so hard for prior service to enlist? And then connected almost to that, why is the Army being so strict on who they recruit? I know other services are lowering their standards. Is the Army going to lower their standards?
I'll take the standards one first, and you can talk about, yeah. So this is important, and this is a message that comes from the very senior leaders of DOD, and is very clear messaging to myself, and of course my job for the Chief Staff of the Army is to is to inform him on the standards our soldiers are expected to achieve and maintain. We can't lower standards. We can't afford to. We are an increasing environment of complexity, and we have a high demand on high-quality soldiers that serve in this organization we call the U.S. Army. We can make numbers. Numbers are not hard to achieve. Those numbers and those filters that you saw from the 33 million down to the 136,000, they're there for a reason. And it's because we need to be a highly efficient, highly mobile, highly capable force. And just to make numbers, we could do that by reducing standards, but it wouldn't bring us capability or readiness. So the U.S. Army is committed to making the DoD required and Department of the Army standards required, because most of those we impose upon ourselves as an individual service. We have no intention of dropping those accession standards for the future.
In regards to the prior service issue, let's do a hypothetical. I get out as a 42 Alpha, Sergeant E5, get out as a 42 Alpha. I come back in, let's say less than 2 years. 42 Alpha itself at the skill level 20 level may be maxed out. We have other MOSs that we are accepting, and so those applicants those prior service will know if you join, you will come back in 19 Kilo, 13 Fox, whatever their MOS is. So they're given choices in regards to that, but it's not we're going to let you go back in with your own MOS, because, like I said, based on Manning, we can't support them to go back into that in MOS. Excuse me.
And to add to that, we do have a prior service basic training that we are running. We run it at Fort Leonard Wood, and it's a course that is shortened. It's not the entire 10-week course right now. It's currently 6 weeks. And we're looking at even modifying that even more to accommodate prior service individuals as they continue to want to migrate to the better service as opposed to the other services. So there's one. Go ahead, please.
Yes.
And I wanted to bring that back, if I can, in reference to how do we eliminate the stigma in social media. At first, when I accepted that question, I thought of the Army Marketing and Research Group, how we can eliminate the stigma. So, as you know, there's the U.S. Army social media channels that are out there, and then there's Go Army Instagram social media things. We do our best at that level to present ourselves in a professional manner, but as I look around this room, I see a lot of senior level NCOs that it begins with us, how we monitor, because one of the things that I will say, social media is not going away. It's not going away. And so in terms of how we police our soldiers, because I was taking that question, there's no way I could do it alone, posting one thing, because we have 100% control of what goes out there on Army channels for social media. But we cannot control what young PFC Travis Jones posts on his individual pages. So one of the things that, from my opinion, how we can help police that up and that stigma that we have in eliminating the negative things that we have out there, search certain hashtags, hashtag U.S. Army, U.S. Army Soldier. And if you see one of your soldiers that are out there that will present the Army in a negative way and build upon the stigma that is out there, it's up to us, the ones that are wearing the uniform, to police that up with our soldiers, to make sure that we don't fall into that realm and posting things out there in social media. So there's something out there that I saw that says think, analyze, post. We have to make sure that we continue to instill that into our soldiers before they out there and present themselves in a negative way on social media. So I just come to kind of bring that back to hopefully I answer that question.
Okay. All right, let's go out to our field for the next question.
Hello. Hey, building on that a little bit, each one of us, because I'm a recruiter and I've talked to this 3rd Brigade out there, Sergeant Major Bowers. I came out there and talked to your brigade, great unit. But, we, as you topping on what Mr. Cox says, we all have a story to tell. We all had a recruiter in our life somewhere that helped us get to where we're at today. And each one of us in this room, if you ask us, if it wasn't for the Army, where would you be today? You could be that person on the street that's in trouble or took the left road and took the wrong road. We need to tell our story. Each one of our schools out there usually have a unit that sponsors that school. As we get into that unit, we plant that seed at that level with their young grade school kids and talk about how great our Army is, and instead of it being the last resort that they look at and they find out they're not qualified. I think if we start spreading that seed then and using the veterans like myself that truly Soldier for Life is not only help when you make the transition, it's also helped to show the successful corporate members that are out there to tell that story in the schools and them youngsters out there and spread that word, and we can use that word of mouth to try and lower those bad negativism that's out there about our Army, because we all have a story to tell, and it's a great story, and every one of us started out in a different aspect of what we thought the Army was, and we came in and we got that bug, and here we are today. So, I mean, I'm on board, you know, as we continue to spread that word out there and spread the word and spread the message.
Thank you, Sherman.
Really wasn't a question, it was just a comment. And I love what you're all doing, thank you.
It was a very good comment, though, Sharmander. Thank you. Okay, next question.
Hey, Summit, I got a question for AMC. You said earlier about the $1 billion or $10 billion in storage and everything we have you're trying to get rid of. But you also stated that the Chief of Staff of the Army had 6 things that he mentioned yesterday that was a priority. And readiness is always one. But he said his #1 priority right now for the Army was career. So what are you doing to equip not only the soldiers that's already on career, that some of the equipment is not up to par with the rest of the installations, and the units that's already tagged to come to career, to make sure that they have the right equipment, because it's going to be cold. They're going to need, when you get close to the DMZ or up there, you're going to need stuff just like you have in Alaska. So what are we doing to make sure we have it on the pen for them, so when they get there, they can already get ready to fight?
Well, great question, but I can only tell you so much. I guarantee one thing, is we're talking at least weekly with the requirements and everything from the pen backwards and setting conditions. We're doing something about it, and there's a way and there's a will, and we're going to get it done. We're doing many things like this, and it's just the classification level that really doesn't let me talk to some of this. But I tell you, we are well nested with them as well. With the ASCC and the COCOM requirements, we understand it, and we do understand the environment as well. Trust me, I'm the government. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, next question that came in from the field. So many schools and jobs require a certain GT score, but the score yet, in order to get a certain score, but yet many soldiers lack common sense. Has a test been looked at that could focus on things like common sense and other aspects of a soldier's ability to think independently?
So there's another test that was on my slide, the TAPAS test, and that was the Tailored Adaptive Personality Assessment System. That was used, the emotional capability of a soldier in regards to their trauma of enlistment. And they have looked at other testing before, but in regards to them changing the ASVAB as of right now, they have not decided to do that.
Okay. Go ahead, Sean.
This question's for AMC. You talked about the equipment rollout, soldiers, basic training, heading to the unit assignment, all of that stuff. Is that going to apply to Compo 2 and 3? And if so, what are some of those things going to look like timeline-wise?
Okay, it is, but it's, as you know, the funding streams are different for the National Guard. But we're working, honestly, we're working through the active first. I think we took a lot of lessons from the National Guard, how they equip soldiers as well, from K-Lock and what have you. And actually, that's where ADO started, per se. So yes, the answer is yes, total Army approach on this one. It's really about the funding streams. So what I can tell you is we can't send them from IET environment to a Reserve and National Guard unit at this time, fully equipped. But my view, it's a commentary now, we need to get better at that too, where we change the funding streams where they're alike, so we're all equipped the same way, and also sustain that readiness, so they arrive at those Reserve or National Guard units just like they do in active duty, because it is one Army. So, okay, thanks.
Thanks, Sharman.
That's a tough question.
Okay. Go ahead, Sean.
This is Sergeant Major Gragg. We currently have 2 hours to administer the APFT, so when we roll out the ACRT, how long will you have to administer that particular test?
So right now, we're looking at maintaining that whole time, the 2-hour time limit, but at this particular point in time, in our pilots, we are running through a platoon of people of probably about an hour. Is that what it's taking us to run through a platoon of individuals? So it may increase the amount of tests that you have to perform over a period of time, a testing week, testing month, as opposed to a testing day for an organization. But Dr. Whitfield.
So we're wargaming this now, and we're going to 4 or 5 different sites and trying some different iterations, but the average amount of time is somewhere between 69 and 71 minutes to test a platoon of soldiers. Now, we set up 10 lanes, and it actually goes pretty slick, and I think once, if this is approved and implemented, units will get as good at administering the ACART as they are at administering the APFT. So there'll be economies of scale in there also, but a little over an hour.
So there's some things that, understanding that there's no programmed rest in between these events. So unlike the current APFT where you have that 10 minutes between, there's no programmed rest. So you're moving from event to event to event. So that reduces the amount of time it takes to actually complete the testing cycle.
Sergeant Major?
Well, Sergeant Major, you got an old retiree here with a microphone, so this may take a while. No. The question I got at Recruiting Command just kind of touches what Sergeant Major Jondro, his statement. Is there a program or is there a process, or how do the recruiting communities reach out to retirees and veterans to help tell the Army story and talk to the recruiting pool of personnel?
Well, Sergeant Major, within different organizations, let's say, for example, at the company level, they will ensure that the recruiters go out to the VFWs. They go out and they say, I won't say rustle up, but they ensure that the retirees come back and be able to help tell the Army story, because we look at it this way. And when I said, let's say a VFW, if they would go solicit the VFW, talk to them, and then utilize those same individuals who are within the community itself, who may have history within the community, to have them be spokesmen, to be the voice for us in regards to explaining what the Army has done for them. That's how we get after that. I want to look at it this way. In normal instances, when a soldier, and I go back to the part when I said we're giving guests within the community, when we get into that community, we want to go to the VFWs, we want to go to the Chamber of Commerce, we want to go to everything within that community itself, to embed ourselves within that community, and explain to those within the community what the Army is about. And like you alluded to, one of the good things for us to do is to definitely, grab the retirees and help them to be our spokesperson also.
But if I could add to that, Sergeant Major, there's also Army Advocates on GoArmy.com, where we actually reach out to, and you could also submit and contact U.S. Army Advocates on GoArmy.com, because we're looking for center of influences. So we have influencers, and we do have those stories from retirees as well, and veterans with successful stories that we want to get out to the public.
I'm compelled to make a comment. My name is Doug Harris. I'm the president of the Pikes Peak chapter of the Association of the United States Army. And I didn't hear AUSA chapters as a source for what we can do to get the Army story out and to help soldiers. I'm not going to embarrass anybody here by asking you to raise your hand, but if you're not a member of AUSA, how can you help us? And we're having trouble with membership all across the board. That's why we're here, partly. And so we need your help so that we can help you too. And I can guarantee you that the more membership that we get and the more things that we do for you at the soldier level, at the family support level, In the installation, around the installation, off the installation, it's going to get out. I also serve on the board of directors for the Chamber of Commerce's Military Affairs Council in Colorado Springs. And that was recognized as a source, and that is one of the better sources. But first, you got to start off with having good membership and people within the organization that care. I'll tell you just a quick number. We've got about 592 members in the Pikes Peak chapter, and our footprint's got 30,000 soldiers in it. Well, guess how many of those soldiers are active duty and members of the organization? It's less than 200, folks. I don't know if that's a problem all across the United States Army, but I know there's lots of BS that people are going to tell you about, oh, heck, we, used to be the end of the pay line, you sign up and everybody's a member of AUSA. Well, there's got to be better ways to get to our soldiers, our non-commissioned officers, and our younger officers, and our cadets. And that's what we really need to do, and we need your help to get that going. And I think I'll just leave it at that, and maybe somebody else will make a comment. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next question. Due to technological advances in the medical field, is there a possibility that we can relook some of the policies on certain medical limiting conditions? For example, diabetes. With today's advances in modern science, individuals with diabetes can perform at the same level as a non-diabetic. Is there anything that we can do to take a look at the policies and procedures preventing us from joining the Army?
So I can address that, Sergeant Major, if you want.
You want a lifeline? The MedCom Sergeant Major's over there. If
I
you want a lifeline.
I can punt.
You want, yeah, go ahead, lifeline.
Okay, here you go.
What do you think from the audience? Should we extend him a lifeline?
Yes.
All right, go.
Fair catch.
That's a real good thought in terms of assessing people into the Army versus keeping people into the Army. How do we keep muzzles on the objective area? We've got to think of the objective area first. So everything what we've been hearing this week and that we're going to hear for the rest of the time we're serving, or as mankind exists, I believe, is having to be really extremely agile and adaptive. Working in areas in which we don't have support like we've had in the past. The big neighborhood, right? Cobbs, fobs, roll in, roll out, play video games all night, hit the objective the next day. So you think of this multi-domain battle. I mean, your imagination is your limit to what this is going to mean. When I think of how we support medical and future warfighting endeavors, I think of first a very young combat medic, currently today trained at 16 weeks. That kid is going to be forced to deal with the bugs and the basketball issues, the things that are going to get us first, the DNBI, and then the trauma stuff, the bullets and the ballistics. So when we add to the things that are going to take us out, like basketballs and bugs, medical issues, potential medical emergencies, where our medical logistic chains of whatever that's going to look like in a very, very contested environment. I mean, if we're not going to be able to evacuate in the future, how the heck are we going to be able to get things to you? So I would like to say, sure, medical technology, advancements, enlightenments, understanding, perhaps benevolence. We could enter folks like this in or keep them on the team, give them a classification in which they can stay in the fight. But that's asking a lot, especially in the domains that we're getting ready to fight in. Where we're going to have to be more dispersed. If you're paying attention to what the heck is going on in Europe right now, we can't be masked. We can't have all those support elements next to us. So it's a great question. I think it's we can discuss more, if you want after this, because I can go on forever about this. But I don't want to challenge a system anymore. Would we put a more rusty weapon out there in somebody's hand? Would we put a less capable weapon in somebody's hand? We've talked about more capability, to meet more stringent requirements in the future. So I would say no. We want the best athlete out there that's not going to be hindered by anything, and that's just my good old-fashioned economy of force. But whoever asks a question, we can talk about it later.
Okay. Thanks, Sergeant Major. Thank you. Okay.
First, Sergeant Majors, I want to say thanks a lot for everything you're doing for our Army and the nation. All your great leadership over the years cannot be understated. Thank you very much for your leadership and guidance. So I'm a warrant officer, and what we're supposed to do, I have a tendency to focus on squad leaders, because that's the pool I'm supposed to recruit from. Excellent squad leaders who have been primarily focused on their functional leaders and getting excellence on those NCOERs. And my growing concern over the past decade plus is the workload that we're burdening our squad leaders with. You know, I see them multitasking incredibly, more so than ever before, and it's not just in combat arms, it's across the Army. They have to do their jobs excellently, they have to multitask, deal with taskers, and then go home at night. And this is where I'm most concerned. We're asking them to go home at night, you know, prepare for the next day's mission, prepare the soldiers for the next day's mission, work on SSD, work on college if they can, and also be excellent family members in many cases. My question to you is, how much do you look at whether or not we're overburdening squad leaders, and what should I be thinking about as a key leader in the unit to make sure that I'm not overburdening them? And thank you.
Sergeant Major Gragg, I know you deal a lot with your staff sergeant population in both the AIT and the drill sergeant realm, so if you want to take that one on.
Sure, Sergeant Major. So thank you for the question, Chief. I really appreciate it. So we do, and we're very cognizant of the demand on that grade of the enterprise. The staff sergeant, sergeant first class, is the heart of all of our broadening assignments and really of our organizations in general. We are actively looking at how we can reduce the amount of training demand that we place on them. The chief has clearly said that some of these 350-1 tasks that we are looking at to see, are they really a requirement or are they a want, so that we can try to decrease the demand on them. But we're also, in the institutional world, we're trying to add some things into the back into the NCOES and not necessarily put them in the SSD or the distance learning, so that we can minimize the strain on the individual when they're at home station, so that when we have them at the institutional training, that we maximize the time that we have there. So we are changing the institutional training base right now, and Sergeant Major Sellers is sitting out here probably echoing my comments, and so that the time that we have them there is focused and efficient, so that we ensure that we send them back to you prepared to do their job without any lingering effects. Now, is there going to be training in between? Absolutely. There's a thing that we need to do, and we are continuing to work on, is how to train our young sergeants, staff sergeants, and sergeant first class, how to manage their time, because oftentimes this is more of a time management challenge than it is of a lack of time, because we have a lot of time, but are we using our time effectively and efficiently is the challenge. But thank you for the question, Sergeant Major Mansker.
Hey, first of all, Chief, thanks, because you know, it's exactly right. How do we look at our soldiers? But I'd like to offer one more thing, and I tell you, he talked about the training side, how we reduce training requirements, how do we do the right training. But I tell you, and I talked about Tom Coleman when he talked about giving more equipment. I talked about taking equipment away. But I tell you another thing is, I think it takes operational leaders at the levels we're at now, really understanding the burden that you talked about. And it's about reducing processes and burdens and administrative tasks to allow them to focus on the number one thing, prepare for combat. And so I do appreciate what you just said, because I tell you, I sit at the table for a reason, to bring that forward when we talk about changing process, changing systems, providing something to a soldiers. How do we reduce something when we provide something? So thanks, Chief.
Very good question. Thank you.
Yeah, and Chief, I'll tell you, that's actually a phenomenal question. And it goes to a bigger picture, too, I'd like to touch on. We have increased demands at the unit level exponentially over the years. And they've compounded, not just in the recent years, but I mean just over time. And we got to be careful, because there's another component to this. What I think we've lost the art of, we will get after the 350-1 trainings, but we will never, ever have enough time to do everything that we need to do. It's a complex environment that we live in. It's going to get worse in the future. But what we got to get better at as senior leaders is pushing down capability and responsibility and bringing up risk. So we have to write off the risk of the things we know they're not going to get done. We put enough in their basket that they're not going to be able to accomplish everything. And we got to make it a very easy conversation for them to come back and say, sir, sergeant, I acknowledge You gave me here's things, but here's what I'm not going to get done. And we haven't done that. And I don't think we've been responsible as senior leaders to do that across the Army, and that's the dynamic we have to change. We all have to be under the common understanding that there's a very complex environment out there. There's too many tasks for all of us to do. But I always like to say, if you had 1 hour left for war, what would you train your soldiers on? Well, that's the first thing that you should write down in your training guide for the next quarter. And then if you had 2, the second thing. And then 3, the third thing. But you're not going to get after it. But we as senior leaders have to underwrite that risk. And we have to say, okay, we understand that you don't have enough time. Tell me how you're going to train your soldiers, and let me assume the risk on the things that you're not going to get done. So I appreciate that, Chief. It's a phenomenal question. Thank you. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're just about out of time. I appreciate your attendance in this forum today. I hope that we've educated, informed, and entertained you. That was our objective, and left you with some questions. If you didn't get a chance to ask a question, the panel members will be up here for a short time afterwards. Please engage with them and ask them anything that you can, and continue to challenge them and challenge us as we move the Army forward to the future and we move our soldiers into the complex environment that they will eventually have to work in, and increase readiness of the United States Army. Thank you for your time, and have a great rest of the conference. Army's